Hello, Laura.
Hi.
Hi. You've got a beautiful exhibition here at the Upstairs Gallery in Berkhamsted. Could you tell me something about the inspiration behind the work that you've created here?
Yeah, sure. Most of my work deals with landscape, so the pictures on show here are mainly lino cuts, and a lot of them are based in the north of England. For me, the pleasure in printmaking is in creating a sense of sort of light and movement and space. So I'm working a lot with lino at the moment, working very transparent layers, and experimenting with ways of suggesting that they're very fluid and impulsive mark making, so that my pictures look almost as though I was in the landscape creating them, whereas in actual fact there's quite a lot of intricate cutting that goes on, which is what I'm doing at the moment here. So with this particular piece, it is a great big hillside in Scotland. It's up in the north from Inverness. And I went up for 2 or 3 days drawing. So I'll go out into the landscape with a sketchbook and I'll do loads of drawing and I'll take loads of photographs, and then I come back to my studio, and that's kind of where the cooking goes on, where I turn it into what I would call a design drawing. So I'll amalgamate ideas from sketches and from photos and make the final drawing of an image that will turn into a print. So with this particular piece of work, it's a great big dark hillside covered in heather, and what I like about it is that behind the hillside there's a very pale mountain, and I like the contrast. And I also like the fact that I don't quite know how I'm going to pull this off, so it's kind of a work in progress at the moment.
Okay, and the process that you do you do, what sort of technique is it that you use for layering your colours? Do you do a reduction process, or do you...
Yeah, with lino cut I'm always working in reduction because that's kind of what I know how to do. It's what I studied at university. So I use oil-based ink, and I work with, I'm lucky enough to have a big Albion press at home, which is what I use to print. And I often work traditionally light to dark, but I quite often also work with light on top of dark. And I do a lot of what I call very loose inking, where I'm actually painting with the rollers on the block. And I work quite often with extender and make the ink very, very transparent. So maybe working with 2% ink and the rest of it transparent medium, so that it almost becomes like watercolour, very delicate washes of colour.
And the colour palettes that you work with, are they inspired by your... well, by nature, or how do you get the inspiration for your colours?
So the colours, partially by observation, but when I work with colours, I usually have a very small colour palette for each picture, and I do a lot of mixing from colour into colour into colour. So it's almost like I've got a stock pot and I'm just adding more things to it. And that dates back to when I was a student and I couldn't afford the ink, so I was always like desperate not to waste any ink. But in actual fact, it gives you a very natural colour scheme, because no colour is pure. You're always knocking that colour back with a mix of other colours and things. So the colours I'm aiming at are the colours that I see in the landscape, but the way I arrive at it is this rather thrifty mixing of one pot of colours into the next. So here on this one, I've used watercolour, which I've applied with a ratty old decorator's brush, and that's giving me the cutting guide for taking out these paler areas of the print that I'm working on at the moment.
And part of this design has been, well, you've drafted out, I can see that you've drafted the design out with pencil.
So what I've done here, actually, it's carbon paper again. So again, I've made a master tracing, and then I've used carbon paper to map it out onto the lino. And people sometimes find with carbon paper that it will transfer onto the paper when you print. You can avoid that if you map out with carbon paper, leave it for a good hour to set, then clean it thoroughly with white spirit. That lifts off the excess and you get a lot less transfer. With water-based ink, and with the oil-based ink I'm using, you don't get any transfer at all. So you can get nice and scribbly and it still won't come off on the print.
Okay. So how long have you been printing?
So I did my degree and I finished that in 1987, and then I went straight into the photographic industry and did nothing until 2005. I didn't draw, I didn't keep a sketchbook, nothing. And in 2005, some friends of the family said that they had a printing press and would I like it. And for a whole year I said no, because I didn't think I wanted to do it again. So they were offering me an Albion, and I was saying, no, I don't think I want that. And they more or less left it on the doorstep, and then I started printmaking.
Is there any of your processes that could be applied to people who are in the textile art field if they wanted to print onto fabrics or anything like that?
Absolutely, yes. Lino is very effective for printing onto fabric. So, yeah, there's lots of help with fabric printing. There's a supplier called Hand Printed in Bognor, and Shirley, who runs the shop there, has a very good blog, and she teaches printing on textile with lino quite a lot. So if you're interested in that aspect of it, that's a really good place to look for information.
Do you have a website? Do you do workshops?
I do workshops, and I have a website under my name at www.lauraboswell.co.uk. And if you're a printmaker, look at the resources section, because there's lots of little photo stories and help and advice there. I also have Facebook and Instagram accounts under Laura Boswell Printmaker, and a YouTube channel, and I treat those like an open studio, so work in progress, hints and tips, lots of advice, stuff like that. You can find me there.
And do you have information to do with your registration tool that you have?
Yes, I have a device which is designed to allow you to line up lino to print colour lino cuts on the tabletop using a little fold-up MDF device, and that you can find at my shop on my website, but you can watch full demonstrations of me using that for reduction and multi-block printing on the YouTube channel under my name.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much.